welcome this next episode of YouTube, where every day is one day closer to the introduction. And one of the management things that we constantly deal with in these days is heat, and we're always trying to keep the pups cool, especially if they're active and going in and out for programs. Bolts is a great fan of pawing the water, very similar to Grizzer. If you recall some of the footage of Grizzer, that's his classic MO of pawing and pretty much emptying the water. He also likes to bite the water, which is also a classic wolf behavior, but that is a challenge for us, keeping him cool. Luna's not as big of a fan to go in the water. She does like a little mist, and not so much the running water like Bolts does, but does like a little mist. So keeping puppies cool during these extremely warm days has been a daily occurrence for us. And keeping the pups occupied. Now, when this was filmed, we still were on restrictions with Luna, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, but keeping them busy and, so they're not focused on each other through the fence was real important, and this is one of the ways to accomplish two goals: keep a puppy cool and keep them occupied. For Luna, this looks like the same footage that I showed last week, but it's actually a different day. The Luna is very predatory, very engaged in tossing behavior, as well as stalking behavior and chasing and pouncing, and again, a very active pup there. We did have x-rays done at the Ely Vet Clinic on Tuesday. Things looked good here, but as a standard practice, we send them to the radiologists at the University of Minnesota and are still waiting for a call back from them on the status. But according to what our interpretation here in Ely is, things were looking good. So here's just another distraction. This is a beaver. Again, we do buy beaver from local trappers, and this beaver, notice, has the hide on it, so was not trapped for fur. It was trapped because of road flooding or other issues. Call it a nuisance beaver trapping, and there are some of those going on during the summertime. So this is frozen, and its primarily function is to keep Luna occupied, but if she can get to some of that beaver meat, that is a nice fat content meat. We don't give a lot of beaver meat to her, but certainly she's really engaged in the feeding process and feeding behavior. And she uses her carnassials, her back molars, even though they're just coming in. She uses them to slice that through that hide. And, again, this is all instinctual behavior. This is something that we taught her. She knows how to rip into a carcass and to open up the visceral cavity. And it keeps her occupied. No doubt, this is something when, again, Bolts is in the holding area and she's out in the yard, gave her something to do that doesn't focus on being separated from Bolts. And it is interesting, the focus that goes into a pup when it's, a meat in a bowl that we're serving versus an actual carcass. They'll walk away from meat in a bowl, but it doesn't seem that they're as interested in walking away from a carcass. And here's a clip with howling going on in the pack. She comes over to listen, but not going to walk away from her carcass. Other behaviors that are going on is lots of caching. This is Bolts caching rawhide or pig's ear, not really sure which. But a lot of people ask, what are things that they're learning, and what would they learn from the adults that they're not learning from humans? And the reality is a majority of what we see is instinctual behavior. And if you watch your dog caching, you might notice the same kind of behaviors: digging, pushing with the nose, tamping with the nose. But there is some learned behaviors that's probably going to go on once the introduction occurs. This is Aiden, who's doing a cache, and what Aiden's doing that's a little bit different than what Bolts did is, in the compacted soil, Aiden's loosening up that soil first by digging in it before he caches. And that's, again, maybe not a revolutionary behavior, but it may also be motivated by the fact that he has lupus and his nose is lost pigmentation and maybe a little tender. But he does loosen the substrate before he does the cache. But actually, the cache is the exact same procedure as Bolts, probably again indicating instinctual when you have the same procedure. So this clip here, Bolts is reacting to Aiden, who's been bringing food over to the pups, and Aiden brought over a deer leg and then proceeded to go cache it back in that same hole that he was caching before. This is Luna's response when Aiden brings a deer leg over. So Luna's showing aggression, lunging, growling, trying to get at that deer leg. Now, bolts, we've been noticing a lot, and with different issues with bolts. Separation between these two pups is really hard. And this is a clip when Luna was in the lab and Bolts was outside. And granted, it's hot, and and he's panting quite a bit. But the main issue of this clip is the howling and the separation behavioral issues that we're having because we're separating them for so long. So upon the advice of the Ely Vet Clinic, because we hadn't heard from the U of M, they said, let's just transition them back together. And so we did. And we did that on Thursday morning. Took us about 3 hours of kind of aggressive, rough play before they settled down. This is a real important behavioral moment for us as we look towards the introduction, and we obviously want to know that the pups have a strong bond as they go into the enclosure. And again, we've not finalized anything yet. We're 17 days away. We hope to have some finalized plans once we can have some discussions about the last set of x-rays, where we're at with Luna's development. We've got a lot of things progressing and happening on a daily basis here, and so we're not going to really discuss anything yet until we have a finalized plan. But at this point, we're working with the veterinarians, we're working with several other captive facilities, bouncing our ideas off, getting their input, and trying to come up with a sound management plan that works in the best interest of both the adults and both pups. In the exhibit pack, we see them being extremely calm, not having any real conflict between each other, probably because of the heat. Also, Denali is not shedding nearly as much as Aiden, and so that's probably keeping them down as well. I'm going to let you just listen to a clip from Grizzer. Grizzer's been responding to obviously lots of activity going on. We are going to start using the front part of Grizzer's enclosure 2 hours a day to get the puppies used to that area, because that is where the introduction is going to occur. So I'll let you listen to the rest of his howling. In retirement, Shadow still greets at the fence regardless of how much fly ointment torture I do to him. We've got a little residual fly ointment on the ears there. You can see that kind of darkness, but some of that is bites, and we are just struggling with that, trying to get him to trust us enough to put a cake of ointment on. We do the sprinkler hoses when it's really hot, and we've had a lot of hot 85-degree days here, and usually he likes them. Today he's just a little bit leery of them. And the other thing that's been working pretty successfully is the cedar oil in the den, and that's really been our best bet. We can't spray them because they're leery of it, but we can spray the den and provide a nice, comfortable place where the flies aren't congregating, and that's the best that we can do at this point. So that's it for this week's YouTube. Thanks for watching.